Welcome to Golden Goal. Yes, this is one of our few pre-recorded specials we've got for you while we are away for a bit. And what we thought we'll do is tackle, first of all, the Champions League draw. Yes, as we're recording this, the Champions League draw has just been made, and there's plenty to talk about, and I've got people to do it with me. So we've got two people whose clubs are back in the Champions League, actually, for the first time in a while. George, how are you?
I'm good, mate. It's good to be back. Good to be back. It felt we were in the Champions League, but it didn't feel like that after the draw. What we'll get into, but
Yeah, it'll be interesting to discuss that and discuss your group, which has hints of, yes, last season's Europa League. And back in the Champions League after much longer period. Nick, Newcastle fan, how are you?
I'm doing very well. First time for Champions League in since 2002, 2003 season.
Mm. And Chelsea, can't see them. No, 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 no,
No,
no,
not in
no,
Europe. No, not in Europe
never
at
mind.
all.
Never mind. So
well,
let's. What's that, George?
I was watching it, but I'm still watching. I couldn't find Chelsea. I couldn't find Liverpool.
No, can't find any of them. If you see them, yeah, let me know. Uh, so yeah, you can't. Well, you're more than welcome to comment on this video, but obviously we will probably read them out during our first video back when we're live. So yeah, drop us some comments. What you think of the draw, and by the time we actually go live, I think we might have had some matches played, so it'll be interesting. So let's kick off with Group A then. So what we'll do is discuss each group and then do some predictions because you know how much I love a prediction.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some predictions and we'll see if we can actually pick. Well, we can't really pick the winner as such, but we'll see if we can pick the two teams that go through to the last 16 and the teams that will drop out into the Europa League. So, A then. You've got Manchester United, you've got Bayern Munich, you've got Galatasaray, and you've got
Copenhagen.
FC Copenhagen. Now, George, what are your thoughts on Manchester United's group?
So when it was getting drew, I saw Munich and United come out, and I thought, oh, here we go, United. They might get the group of death, but that wasn't that English team that got that. I think there's enough for United to probably get through. Um, Obviously, Harry Boy is going to be playing against United. I really thought Arsenal was going to get them, but it's fine. We'll probably get them later in the tournament.
You did joke. I was tempted to put a cheeky bet on that, see if that happens.
It'll happen, mate. Like if we both get through it, guaranteed to
It
happen.
was that or Man United to draw Sevilla.
Yeah, we just boxed it around a bit, kept it interesting. Um, I will laugh though. A friend of mine texted me and said after that Champions League draw, Man United surely have got to be firm favourites for the league.
For the what? Sorry, cut you off there.
Be firm favourites for the Europa League.
Well, I'll say my piece in a minute.
but, but I think, personally, on the serious side, I think you're not. I think Munich will win the group and United will be second, and Galatasaray third.
So yes, Turkish side dropped to the Europa League. Bayern winning the group and United just about managing second. So Nick, what are we going for? What are your thoughts on this group?
I think it is quite an interesting group. Man United. Well, I listened to it on Talksport 2, and I thought Man United were going to get a harder group than they did, but I think that is manageable for them. I think Galatasaray have got some good players in the team, so they should not be underestimated. But I would think Bayern will probably hammer Man United both times. So I think Bayern and Man United to go through, and Galatasaray to drop out to Europa League.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you there. I think when it comes to Man United, I mean, out of the two teams, we're thinking Bayern and United here. Uh, I'd say Bayern will have an easier time. Man United, if they carry on playing like that, I'd say it's between them and Galatasaray as to who drops out. And I think I personally wouldn't be surprised if either team of Man United or Galatasaray finishes third. I don't think this group is that easy for Man United. Not based on the way they've been playing at the moment. I do personally think that they will struggle. I don't think FC Copenhagen will do much damage. Again, it could be a surprise. They could deliver something, but yeah, I will say Bayern will win and Man United will finish second and Galatasaray will finish third, but I wouldn't be surprised if Galatasaray sneak in there and finish second if Man United carry on playing the way they are. But yeah, what do you think? Drop us some comments while you're watching this. What do you think will happen in Group A or any other of the groups we're about to talk about? So Group B then, we've got Arsenal, we've got Lens, I believe that's how you pronounce them.
Yep, Lens.
A PSV for Arsenal again, and Sevilla. So, George, what's your thoughts on your group?
It's manageable again. Like I said, it reminds me of the Europa League group. But I don't think it'll be easy. Like everyone's got to think Europa League champions. And I might be wrong, but I think they were both runners-up in the French and the Dutch league.
I believe so, yes.
Yes, Lens were runners-up by 1 point to PSG.
Yeah, so I think we can win, yeah. I think our home game's obviously really important. PSV may lose a couple of players. Looks like they're going to lose. I think he's their striker to Brentford, so just before the end of the transfer window. So that's probably a good sign. And I think a midfielder could be off. So it all depends. Like they're not got Van Nistelrooy anymore. They didn't look that convincing against Rangers. Like they've done their job, but
they did look convincing yesterday, I'd say.
I didn't watch the last one.
They hammered Rangers 5-1 yesterday, and to be honest,
it was 5-1. Yeah,
they did take their PSV did take their foot off the gas a bit and let Rangers back in, and then quickly put the foot to the gas again because they realized they were slowly risking it. But yeah,
in the first leg, I didn't think PSV were that good personally. But it'd be interesting. Like you say. Like I say, I think we've got winnable games there. I've put us. If we play how we can, instead of playing how we have done recently in Europe, I'd put us to win the group, then Sevilla. But I could see it the other way around. So I think it's Arsenal and Sevilla going through. But obviously, I want to win the group because you get a better draw, but as long as we get through, it's what matters, really. PSV, I think PSV will probably drop down to the Europa League. But it all depends, like, because I don't know much about the French club, so we'll just have to wait and see with that one. But it'd be interesting seeing what Arsenal would like. It'd be the first time playing in Champions League with people like Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, Martinelli, Ramsdale. So it'd be interesting, really.
yeah. I will. Well, I'll actually do my prediction last. Nick, what do you think of this group?
It is a very interesting group. Sevilla obviously won Europa League last season, so that's why they were put in pot 1 in this group. Arsenal pot 2, and then PSV and I haven't got through against Rangers against the first qualifying round. They breezed through that, but then Rangers first leg they weren't impressed. Didn't really play well, but got a job done second leg, and Lens. They had a really good season last season in France with a very good team, but they have lost some players in this window. But Sevilla haven't started very well in their league.
No,
they've not won a single match yet.
They've not picked up a single point. They're currently 0 points out of the possible 9.
Yeah, so I think they're gonna there there'll be pressure for them. There'll be pressure on there for them. So I do think Arsenal will get through this group. I think Arsenal win the group, and then I'm gonna say Lens. I'm gonna say Lens to go through with them, and then PSV to drop down for Europa.
See, that's quite interesting because I don't know. I mean, Sevilla, to be honest, yeah, they've not won a single game. They have though been, yeah, games have been quite thrilling, even though they have lost every single one of them. I mean, it'll be interesting how many more games they will lose or win in the lead up to the competition. It'll be interesting what Arsenal do. I think you can't really judge Arsenal at the moment. You know, they've had a okay win against Forest that they drew with Fulham. And who did you play in between that? Palace, 1-0. So tricky to say, but I would say it's this group that I think will be quite close if all teams play their best. So I'm gonna say Arsenal to win the group, Lens to finish second, Sevilla to finish third, and PSV to finish bottom. Because Sevilla love their European football. So they want to go back to the Europa League and win it again. Probably. But that's what I'd say. We'll go to Group C now. And this one is an interesting one. There's a few first timer. There's a first timer here. Well, not first timer, but for a while. I don't think this team's been in. So Group C has Union Berlin,
That is the
Napoli.
first time they play Champions League Berlin.
So that would be an interesting one, a first timer. You've got Napoli, obviously Serie A champions from last season. That will be interesting because they've also lost some players, but they've kept a hold of some good ones there. Real Madrid, of course, who were knocked out by Manchester City in the semi-finals, and Sporting Braga, who I can't remember seeing in the Champions League for a while, if not also.
Braga have been in the Champions League.
I can't remember when the last time they've been, actually, but...
Last time Arsenal was in it, they was in it.
Oh.
A couple of seasons ago as well, Braga were.
So, George, this group has no English teams. What are you saying on this one?
I think you'll see Madrid and Napoli go through. Union Berlin's an interesting one because I think they've done really well last season. They've got some decent players. I don't know how they've started this season, but
I can check that for you in a second if you keep talking.
Yeah, but it's nice when you see these first timers. They always shock people. Like we saw the team that I can't remember the country they were from, but they was in Real Madrid group last season.
It's the massive Sheriff.
Sheriff, that's it. Like they expect them to get the results they did. So, and when it comes to Braga, I think you know what you get with Braga. They'll be there or thereabouts. But for the Europa League, I think, but they're not a Porto or Benfica now, are they?
No.
I'm surprised actually. They must have finished ahead of Sporting Lisbon, I assume.
Yeah, they did.
And that's
didn't. I think Sporting Lisbon were fourth in the end.
Surprising that because our well Sporting played against us in Europa League. So
I mean, the Portuguese league is at the moment quite interesting. I've checked on Union Berlin; they are top of Bundesliga on goal difference, above Bayern.
That's what I mean. Like they're doing quite well. So.
I believe they scored 8 goals and conceded only 2.
Okay. So yeah, I'd probably go for Madrid. I'm actually going to go for Napoli to win the group.
Oh.
Real Madrid to come second, and then Union Berlin to come third. Because I was looking through the group. Obviously, I know we haven't gone through all the groups, but I was looking at some of the pot 2 teams, and mate, like some of those heavyweight European clubs in there, like every group has got 1 or 2 big names in it.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of groups that could go either way, and no matter our predictions, we can be surprised.
But even with like heavyweight like pedigree, like I know people take digs at Celtic. Like you think of the heavyweight pedigree they have in the group, and then obviously we'll come to their group. And you got teams like you got you got teams like say Arsenal and Newcastle saying, I don't know. Do you know what I don't know. I wouldn't mind being in that Barcelona group, like before the other teams get announced, or like even Ajax are not even in this. Which
No.
is surprised.
Is it Conference League, Ajax?
Yeah,
I think either that or the Europa League.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like you think, like you're going through all these teams, like they're just mad, really. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to. You won't really want to play any of them. Like there's easier passages, but
There's easier passages, but every team can be. As I've always said, the most dangerous teams are the ones who people underestimate.
yeah, there's only two French teams.
Yeah, because Marseille lost to Panathinaikos in qualifying.
That's it. Because of Guendouzi, and then they sold him.
Yeah. So, Nick, what you going for? What do you think of this group?
I think this is going to be a very interesting group. Real Madrid will be smarting from last season when they were knocked out by Man City, and also the fact they lost the La Liga title to Barcelona, so they want to improve, and especially with Jude Bellingham now part of their squad. Napoli, they lost their manager, so that might affect them because he got quite a lot out of their team to get them to win the Serie A last season. The fact they kept the Georgian winger and Osimhen is massive for them. Union Berlin, you should not underestimate because he did really well to finish fourth last season in Germany. Which is probably not really expected because Leverkusen and Gladbach didn't do very well compared to recent seasons. Braga, they've done well to qualify, but I don't think they'll do much. So I am going to say Napoli and Real Madrid to go through. I'm going to say Union Berlin to get the Europa League place.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, to be honest. And the fact that Napoli managed to keep hold of Osimhen, is that his name? Osimhen?
Yeah, Osimhen.
Yeah, to me, that player was one player that I thought was going to basically go to the Premier League. I know I wanted him at Chelsea. So the fact that Napoli kept hold of him when the usual run is that these teams have a very good one season, then they get stripped to the bones by other clubs who can quote unquote offer more. It's nice to see for once that actually, these teams that have that one good season actually can keep hold of their good players, because Napoli being able to keep hold of players like him, they can guarantee themselves, I think, a much better chance. And certainly, they would want to progress further than they did last season. So I'm going to say Real Madrid to win the group still. Because that being my Spanish team, plus also I think they have enough to win the group. They're not going to find it easy. If they both matches against Napoli, I think will be a challenge, and Union Berlin, you never know. So Real Madrid to win the group, Napoli to finish second, Union Berlin get the Europa League drop, and Braga unfortunately to finish bottom. So Group D then, and this group. Interesting returns there. You've got Real Sociedad in the Champions League. You've got, of course, Red Bull Salzburg, who frequently have caused upsets of all sorts. You've got Inter Milan, and of course, finalists last season, and you've got Benfica as well. So, George, your thoughts?
Yeah, so that's just my point. Like you look at that group, you got Inter Benfica, two heavyweights of European football.
This is a group where either of their four teams can probably, well, there's 3 out of 4 teams that can make it through to the last 16 easily.
Yeah, I think any of them could. Salzburg even upsetting a few.
It's Sociedad I've got doubts over.
I have to kind of back them a little bit because I've got Kieran Tierney. At the
Oh, they
minute.
do have him now.
With Sociedad, I think like it all depends. Like I don't think they'll go through, but I think they'll could cause a bit of upset. I think it'll be one of those groups that like we go to the 5th or 6th game and there'll be like one team and then the other one 6 or 7. It'll be
this group will be tight.
But I think going through will probably be. See, I would have said Benfica, but they just sold Don Carlo Ramos, didn't they?
He's gone to PSG on loan with obligation to buy, I think.
So I'm gonna definitely. I think Inter Milan will definitely go through. They'll win it, and then I am gonna go for. I'm gonna surprise everyone. Go for Salzburg and then Benfica to finish 3rd.
I'm not sure if Salzburg is that much of a surprise. I think, like I said, we'll go to you, Nick, before I go for my thoughts.
I think this is probably going to be one of the tightest groups in the Champions League this season, because I think all 4 teams could be equally matched and they could take points off each other. So like this could be like one of those really not very high scoring points where to get through. Inter Milan have got quite a lot of. Inter Milan squad is mostly the same compared to last season. There's been obviously a few players. They've lost a few players, but they've replaced them quite well, I think. Benfica, question mark. Real Sociedad did really well last season to qualify the Champions League after selling last summer Alexander Isak to Newcastle. So that was quite impressive. And then Salzburg, they have constantly caused problems for teams in the Champions League. And I think it was 2020 they got out of the group to the last 16 and then got destroyed by Bayern. So that'd be quite interesting. So I am going to go for Inter definitely will win the group. And then I am going to go for Salzburg to qualify with them, and then Benfica for Europa League.
You think that Salzburg year, I'm sure they were actually beaten by Munich as well.
They were at one point they were 1-0 up, and I think the game they played in Salzburg, I think it finished a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, it was a draw in Salzburg, but then obviously Bayern was too strong for them in Munich.
And like, everyone laughs at Salzburg, but people should don't forget what players come from. Like Haaland started there. Then they had the young striker that's gone to Dortmund now, understudy, Sabotide, or however you say his name. He was there at one stage, so they have some decent players. They're more known for
quite a lot of players that end up at Leipzig come from Salzburg.
Well, unsurprisingly there because they're same owners, but I do think Salzburg is one of these teams that has many young proteges who end up doing big things. Both Haaland and the young striker now both have gone to Dortmund in their time. Salzburg is one of these teams I'd always say can be incredibly dangerous, and I think, like I said, this is one of the groups which I think is borderline impossible to predict. I think I'd say every team can make it. It's a hard group to predict, and I think no matter which way we predict, I think something somewhere will change here. So I'm going to say Inter to win that group, Salzburg to finish 2nd, Sociedad to finish 3rd, and Benfica to finish 4th. But I genuinely don't know if that's what will happen, and I think each of these teams could finish completely different position. I think if there is one group that's very tricky, that's impossible to predict, it's this one. It's going to be probably very tight, there will not be a team
I
on
think this.
0 or 3
I think with
points
this group, no, I think this group's going to go to match day 6. I think.
easily.
What's
I think
hard is that a lot we could predict this, and then a lot changes in. Obviously, by the time this show comes out, people would know. But with deadline, all it takes is for a club to lose a couple of players,
exactly, or even
like,
a club to lose one star player.
like you look at Bayern Munich, they've already lost Gravenberch. That's all it takes is them to lose someone else, and they'd struggle. But like you just don't know. Like
No.
or injuries or suspensions. If that's the beauty of the Champions League, and not the last time we'll ever see the group stages again.
I was gonna say, yeah, we've got the brand new format to get our heads around by the time this show rolls around again next year. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, tight group. Yes, sorry, what you say?
So just the not version of the European Super League.
Yeah, the European Super League no one wanted. Yeah. And everyone's getting. So yes, tight group there. Let's go to Group E now. This is an interesting one. You got Lazio, we've got Feyenoord, we've got Atletico Madrid, and we have Celtic. George.
See, when I saw this group at first, everyone jumps on the Atleti bandwagon and.
Oh well, let's think
Lazio.
about what happened to them last season, shall we?
Didn't Atletico crash down the group stage last season?
Yes.
Yeah, but one thing I will say, Brendan Rodgers and Celtic, if they want European football after Christmas, that's probably a decent group for them to have. I don't think they'll qualify, but I could see them getting Europa League football because for me, obviously we don't know how Atletico are going to be, and I watched them play in the La Liga the other day, and I weren't that impressed.
Yeah.
Lazio, you not kind of know what you're going to get with that. They've just signed Guendouzi as well, so they're obviously trying to improve. Who's the other team?
That's Mauricio Sarri. Is it Mauricio Sarri's team, Lazio?
I thought you said that's Mauricio Sarri. Then I was like, who is he? Is he new manager? Yeah. So I don't know. Who was it? Atletico.
It's Feyenoord. Feyenoord.
The champions of the Eredivisie.
Yeah.
Just to give you an update, Atletico Madrid have 7 points from the last 3 games, currently sitting second in La Liga.
I can't remember who they were playing last. It was at the weekend or something. I watched the highlights and I was like, mate, like, Memphis Depay scored. That's the one. That was the game it was. But with Celtic, like, I don't know, like it's a debate we could have for another show, like about Scottish football and all that. But could this be the year that Celtic hang in there? Those European nights could get you a result. It's one of those. It's like the other group, mate. To be honest, like I could see any of those teams getting through. I'm gonna go Lazio to win the group. So I'm gonna say Atletico Madrid just because it's Atletico Madrid, but I'd have Celtic to finish third, but I could see it swapping round if Celtic get a couple of decent results behind them. Because if Celtic get like a really good start and Atletico don't, I think the pressure is going to go on to Simeone, and I think this is the difference with Atleti now. Whereas he had a long time and a lot of like in the bank, whereas now I don't think he does as much. So the pressure will be on him. And I feel it's not really fair for me to comment on Feyenoord because I've not really watched them. But as it's a British team, I'd like to see Celtic stay in Europe. And I like Celtic. So.
Yeah, Nick, we'll go to you.
Funny enough, when this draw was happening, this was the group one of the groups I wanted Newcastle to have, because I think this is quite a club. I think it's going to be a tightly contested group again, and anything could happen with this group. I would see Lazio and Atletico qualifying, but Celtic could get through. It's not impossible for them to get out of this group into next stage for the Champions League. Because if they start well especially with the fans backing them at home, they get a couple of good results and Atletico don't, then Atletico could slip up and get knocked out again. But I'm going to say Lazio, Atletico to qualify for knockouts, and then Celtic for Europa.
Yeah, I think this is another tight group, really, because Atletico, you just have to look at the Atletico team you've had last season in the Champions League, and you can say that, they can be beaten, and, they can certainly. I mean, last time if my memory serves me correct, they didn't actually get Europa League football. They finished rock bottom, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that was correct. They didn't. They crashed out Euro altogether.
Exactly. So I think this is, if Group D with Salzburg was tough to call, I think this is the second hardest, because every team can do something in here. Now, do I think Celtic will finish second? Unlikely, but not impossible. I think if there was one group where, last season no one gave Celtic a chance, and I could see why. This season, I don't give Celtic much of a chance to finish second, but I do think they have a chance, which is not something you say often about Celtic in the Champions League. I'm going to say Lazio to win the group. Feyenoord to finish second. They did get to the semi-finals of the Europa League, so it depends how many players they lost. Celtic to finish third. I can see them getting Europa League. And I will say Atletico Madrid to finish bottom, just because it would be funny. But it's a different it's a different Atletico team, to be honest. It's not the Atletico Madrid we had that were fighting at the upper echelons of Europe. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. We're moving to Group F then, Mr. Nicholas. And the Group F is as follows: Newcastle, Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund, and AC Milan.
Someone Undertaker.
I mean, Nick, we'll go with you. We obviously will go with you. Newcastle back in the Champions League. How do you feel to receive that as your first group back?
Not great, let's say. This is probably the group I wanted to avoid mostly. If PSG will probably win this group because of the players they have. And then Newcastle, I think AC Milan AC Milan had to rebuild this summer with selling Tonali to us and getting players in. And then you can never tell with Dortmund. Sometimes you think, Dortmund will win, and then they just, for some reason, they slip up against a team you think you should beat, and they don't do it. And then other times they play really well and win. So it's very hard to tell with Dortmund. Like, they should have won the league last year and they didn't. I'm gonna say Paris Saint-Germain and Dortmund to go through, Newcastle for Europa League, and AC Milan bottom. But that's the best case scenario. I'm not confident with it.
Okay, George, we'll go to you.
I don't think it's definitely the group of death, but as a neutral, I'm quite excited because I think each team can beat each other. I think Nick's a bit harsh on Newcastle's chances, to be honest. You've got to be good to be in the Champions League. You say about PSG, but they've lost Neymar, they've lost Messi.
And can I just point out they've drawn their first 2 games of Liga and they've just won their most recent one in the league. So they've got 5 points out of a possible 9.
Yeah, like obviously they've lost them. They've lost a couple of midfielders to Saudi. I'm not saying they're a bad side, but everyone says about Milan rebuilding. So are PSG. Obviously they've got Mbappe, but
That's only one player.
Yeah, it's one player. Like AC Milan kind of rebuilding Dortmund. Dortmund are a good side. They just don't have that.
But Huben knows what Dortmund does.
I've seen enough of Dortmund, but I've seen Dortmund qualify last season.
They're just not clinical, Dortmund. But
they're not consistent either.
If Newcastle set up the way they can beat those teams. I'm not saying they will, but they can. I don't think PSG will win the group.
God, I'm not the only one.
I've got PSG to come second, but it's so hard to call who would win, who would get first. And for me, it's between AC Milan and Newcastle. And the only reason I'm saying that because the way Milan set up, we saw when they played Tottenham last season. I know Tottenham were rubbish, but defensively, AC Milan wasn't a bad side, and probably should have done a bit better because they did against Inter Milan. But people forget they did still get to the semi-finals.
Yep,
semi-finals.
Yeah, semi-finals. So don't forget that.
And yeah, they did beat Napoli, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes, beat Napoli.
And with Newcastle, obviously, they have to take their chances. Don't get me wrong. If you have a Newcastle firing team going, I'm not saying. I just think there's a chance for Newcastle fans to dream and have that belief. But I will go AC Milan to win the group, PSG, Newcastle, and then Dortmund.
All righty. This definitely a group of death. This I feel it is. It's very. I think Abdi described this as a very sexy group in our WhatsApp chat, and I think it is because you can see any of these teams beating the other team in that group, and you have to look at Newcastle. They are here for a reason, and they've certainly bought well. You know, they've bought Tonali, who is an absolute star for them. The few games he's played so far, and that there's potential there. You can see maybe what's not there necessarily now, or what's already there. More likely, what's there already is what could be much better as time goes on with Tonali at Newcastle. Dortmund. Dortmund's Dortmund. It just depends. So far, they've lost 1 game and drawn 1. So they beat FC Köln, not particularly. Yes, they beat Köln, but in Germany, I guess that's how they pronounce it. Cologne, whatever. They've beaten them. It was far from convincing. And then Bochum, they drew against them 1-1 last weekend. So I do think that's just Dortmundish. Do I think they can win the group? Possibly, if they play better. It's tricky to tell. They've only played 2 league games as opposed to other teams. But PSG, yes.
I was going to say what I think with Dortmund as well is seeing how they cope without Bellingham.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one because not having him will have an impact, just like when they lost Haaland. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. But let's look at the other team. Let's look at PSG and their form in France. They've got Mbappe, but like I said, that's one player, and realistically, one player cannot always save you. It's a tough group to pick. I agree with George. It's a struggle to pick the right teams. I'm gonna say, oh, this is a tough one. It's a mad one, but I'll go for it anyway. Dortmund to win the group. Newcastle to finish second. PSG to drop out into Europa League and AC Milan to finish bottom. I genuinely think if there's one season where PSG might not even make it to the Champions League last 16 because they crash out last 16 stage anyway, I think this is the season. They have been very much, even by French league standards, they've been under par this season so far.
Because at the moment, because currently top of French league is Monaco on goal difference to Marseille.
And Monaco just lost their 100% record over the weekend with a draw.
What my thing with Newcastle is all right, you forget they have got Champions League players in that team. Like Trippier has played in the Champions League, Bruno Guimaraes has, Sandro Tonali has, Isak has.
He's played in Europe, but I don't think he's played Champions League.
No, he hasn't.
Not with Sociedad.
I thought he played for Sociedad there. But anyway, like in Europe anyway. So at the end of the day, if Newcastle want to start winning stuff, they have to.
Wasn't Harvey Barnes? Didn't Harvey Barnes play in Europe for Leicester as well?
Yeah, for Leicester.
In Europe, yes, but not in the Champions League.
So I mean, they have these players. So, like at the end of the day, Newcastle.
My only concern is if we get injuries at the
that
back.
That could happen to any team. Though.
If we lose Botman,
you've already got. Isn't Botman already injured?
Yeah, but I'm thinking that's the big one. That's the big injury. If he doesn't play, then we struggle.
But that's the story of everyone, mate. Like if Arsenal lost Saka, if we lost Saka, we'd struggle.
Or every team has these players.
If United lose Rashford or Bruno, they'd struggle. So I just think there's a chance for Newcastle to believe. PSG, I'm not like shitting on them. I'm just saying you lose Messi and Neymar, that affects the front line. I'm not saying the front line is rubbish now.
It's not rubbish, but it's less convincing.
Yeah,
I think when they played the weekend, they had Asensio and Mbappe up front and someone else up.
That's what I mean. Like Asensio, like no offense, he ain't that Real Madrid letting go. So I think where you'll see PSG is where they do away from home. Obviously, you expect them to beat teams at home, but I think it could be another one go down to the last game. As a neutral fan, I'd love it to be so close that it all goes down to the last game.
Oh, the closer the better. Makes for more exciting games, to be honest. And I think it can do that as well. There's a few groups like that. I think we've identified 3 groups that could potentially be doing that.
Yeah.
This next group certainly won't. Manchester City, Young Boys, Red Star Belgrade, and RB Leipzig, who have not had the strongest start, but yeah, we'll go to George first.
It's amazing what 115 winning the treble can get you. If you...
My thoughts exactly.
I don't know if it's part of UEFA's protocol to draw Leipzig and Man City together. It's obviously we all know City are going to win the group. Now, second places, I don't think that clear cut. I could see it's really weird, but I could see Young Boys pushing for that second place. Just because I don't think Red Star Belgrade are that much better. And like you say, with you'd expect it to be City and Leipzig, but I watched Leipzig play and they don't look that convincing.
Well, they've lost a lot of players.
Lost Vardial, wouldn't they? They lost
and Koku and Slobosai
Yeah.
as well.
They lost someone else as well. There was another player they lost.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name, but I know the one you mean.
But like first half forward bloke. But I'd probably say City and Leipzig, but I could see Young Boys maybe pushing Leipzig. So Young Boys will finish third. But then Young Boys have just lost their main striker. He's gone to Burnley, hasn't he? So
Nick, we'll go to you.
I can't see this. Well, I don't think this group will be very exciting. I think it's going to be pretty predictable. Man City are going to win this group, and even though Leipzig have lost quite a lot of their key players in this summer, I think they have spent money and replaced them with good players. So I think pretty predictable prediction for this group is going to be Man City United qualifying, and then I'm going to say Young Boys for Europa over Red Star Belgrade.
See, I mean, yes, Man City are going to win the group. Let's get that out of the way. They've paid enough money to win the group. Now, Leipzig, they're not convincing. They've lost a lot of players. They've not replaced well enough, which is something that I've been saying for a few months. That it's all good that they've sold a lot of players and gained a lot of money, but so far, at least, I mean, there's still, by the time this comes out, the transfer window will be over. But as we're recording this, there's still a whole day of transfers that could still happen. But I think Red Star cannot be underestimated as well. I mean, they're not exactly Europe's prolific, but they can probably cause an upset. So my prediction is City to win the group. And the other three teams, that could be any of them. Young Boys have lost their strikers, so that might cause a problem, but Leipzig have lost players. So Red Star to finish second, Leipzig to finish third, and Young Boys to finish bottom. Just a little surprise there. Next group.
I wouldn't mind if Arsenal got through if we ended up getting Red Star Belgrade.
That wouldn't be too bad, eh? Okay, we're moving on to the last group, Group H. And this one has Antwerp, Barcelona, FC Porto, and Shakhtar. And George, we'll go to you.
I think there's three teams in this that could obviously qualify. I think people forget how hard of a game Shakhtar Donetsk is. Because it won't be as hard, because they won't have to deal with the Ukrainian conditions, with the cold. Because they're
It'll probably be in Poland. It'll be played in Poland, the home games.
That's not. They're playing it in Hamburg, their home games.
Oh, okay.
Announced. So, because they can't play it in Poland because it's too close to the border with the war. So,
well, they did that last time.
Yeah, but the UEFA said it's too risky.
Okay.
That's what I was saying on the earlier about Hamburg, but it might change. But Shakhtar Donetsk ain't a bad side, so Antwerp I don't really know much about.
No, that is true.
So they could be a bit of a surprise package, but I probably would go Inter Milan to win the group.
I mean, No, it's Barcelona.
Porto.
Because
I think Porto have got quite a good side. Barcelona second and Shakhtar third.
Nick, we'll go to you.
This group is quite interesting, and I'm obviously Barcelona want to do better than last season because they dropped out of the group stage because of Inter because Inter and Bayern squeezed them out, and then they got dumped out by Man United in the Europa League. So they want to do better this season in Europe than last season. Porto, last couple of years they've done well and got out the group to knock us out, but then they run into Liverpool.
Getting
and so, but that issue is not going to happen this year. Shakhtar Donetsk, they are a good team and they do regularly qualify for Champions League as winning the European League, and they should not be underestimated. But the fact they can't play in Ukraine is a bit of hampering issue. And Antwerp of Belgium, I don't know much about them, but there could be an unknown factor like Union Berlin, so it'll be quite interesting to see what happens there. I'm going to say Porto and Barcelona to make it through to the knockout stage, and I'm going to say Shakhtar for Europa League.
Yep, it's an interesting one. So when it comes to Antwerp, don't know much about them either. So they could be a dark horse just because not much is known about them. So they can be the surprise package, definitely. Because sometimes if you don't know about a team, you don't know what they can bring, and they could potentially bring an upset. Porto are looking pretty good in the Portuguese league at the moment. Still 100% record a few weeks in. So certainly not to be sniffed at. Barcelona, they've been getting results, but they've certainly have been given run for their money by most of the teams they have played. So it has to be said they've not had it easy. So my prediction, therefore, is Porto to win the group. Shakhtar to finish second and Barcelona to finish third, with Antwerp finishing bottom. And I think it's very much possible. I think Shakhtar, the fact they've not played in Ukraine last season, they will not be playing in there this season. I don't think it'll be as much of an issue as people think, because they've already.
I'll say what more could be an issue, or not even an issue, is that they'll be playing for their families. So it's an added motivation.
Yes, and it's the same thing. The war's still going on. That's still on their minds. And, they want to give people of Ukraine something to cheer on. So I think Shakhtar, and even without that, Shakhtar are a dangerous opponent. They've certainly caused problems for Real Madrid when they were in the group with them a few times in a row. So all in all, I think that they can be quite dangerous. Hence why I'm having them second above Barcelona, who can easily still finish second or even win the group. But again, it's a tight one between them three teams, and that is the group stage. That is the group stage of the Champions League, with the Europa and Conference League draws taking place tomorrow, which will feature obviously Liverpool and Brighton in the Europa League and Aston Villa as in its stands.
Is it not West Ham Europa as well?
Actually, yes, they are. Yes, so it'll be Liverpool, Brighton, and West Ham, and obviously Aston Villa in the Conference League too. So plenty of British involvement in Europe still. Obviously, we will probably mention these draws at some stage, but we will not record a separate show on that. But yes, that is the Champions League. We will see what happens. We will try to bring some regular content on the Champions League as well here for you. But yes, this is what's going to happen by the time when this show comes out, Champions League would not have been played yet because it'll be in the middle of the international break. But by the time we are back live, some games would have certainly been played. So there'll be definitely something to talk about. So thank you very much, George and Nick, for joining us, and we will see you all soon.